We're still in Psalm 25. Last time, the theme that I wanted to get across is find the path, find the road by seeking wisdom. Ask God to point it out. Ask God to lead you, to show you, and He'll do that often, not exclusively so, but often through the wisdom that we have at our fingertips in the Bible. And I cited 3 books. The whole Bible is worth it. But these 3 books, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and James, are a good place to start. Okay, David goes on, verse 5. Lead me by your truth and teach me, for you are the God who saves me. All day long, I put my hope in you. Lead me by your truth. It's as though, all right, and I don't want to reduce the value or the language that David used, but lead me by your truth. I want your truth to be my GPS. And this is just me, but I quit using Apple Maps because I had 3 or 4 experiences where they took me in directions to places I was never going to get to. And I thought, nope, not doing that anymore. See, the value of the GPS program that you're using is only as good as the program is. You may think that your experience may be that Apple Maps is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Good for you. Well, what I'm saying here is the truth, God's truth, is our GPS. We can depend on it because of its source, God. Lead me by your truth. Talked about this a bunch already, but we have to bear in mind, we live in a world that doesn't believe in truth, except when it benefits us, right? I don't know all there is to know about it by any means, but I've done some study and given some deep thought to a philosophy that by now is so firmly and deeply embedded in our culture that it is virtually invisible. It's the idea of postmodernism. And at the heart of postmodernism is the idea that truth is relative. Meaning, you have your truth, I have my truth. And sometimes, let's just be honest, the truth doesn't really matter. Ooh, how'd that work out? Look around. Just look around. Have you ever had a conversation with a young person who's never had the blessing and privilege of being instructed and guided and led by parents who love God and desire to honor Him, who are seeking in the morning for God to show them the right path, for God to point out the road for them to take, and then they pass that along to their kids. Those conversations are very informative, and for me, they kind of make me sad because, with rare exception, they've never been taught to seek truth. You already know I throw a lot of rocks at our modern educational system, because in my opinion, there's a whole lot of stuff wrong with our modern educational system. And one of the big things is they're not concerned with truth at all. With exceptions, there are teachers, and God bless them, may they multiply and overtake the system, who are concerned about the truth. But there's a whole lot of them, especially in higher education, who let's not talk about truth. Let's talk about ideas, okay? Let's talk about opening your mind, broadening your horizons. And, this is how, is one of the ways that I've watched and seen that trickle down into lower education, is now we have a very strong push for students feeling safe and feeling good about themselves. Am I against these two things? No. I want kids to be safe. I want them physically safe. This may give you permission to not connect with me anymore on this, but I actually favor the idea of arming our teachers in the classroom. At the very least, hiring or vetting volunteers to be able, armed volunteers or paid individuals to be present on site, so that if an intruder with evil intent is on the property, they are there and they can use deadly force if necessary. I know that makes me sound horrible to some people. I want our kids to be safe. But I'll tell you, you know what? A 14-year-old kid, again, with very rare exception, generally a 14-year-old kid doesn't really know what does safe mean and what is reasonable safety. If it's all about, I don't want to ever be scared, I don't want ever to feel misunderstood, I don't ever want to feel like I don't measure up, you're not preparing a kid for life. Because it may work in the school, but you get out into life, it may even work in college. But you get on the job, dude, it is no longer at that point about your feelings. And your employer does not have as their first and highest aim to make you feel emotionally safe. Now, if a person doesn't feel emotionally safe to a degree, they won't be able to perform at their best. Got it. I've been there, done that. But what I believe is we got to get back to seeking, teaching the truth, and teaching students how to find and discern the truth. To me, the most important teacher in a kid's life is their parent, their parents in the best cases. And as parents, we have this high honor and responsibility to instruct our kids in these ways. There are times when you just sit down and you say, in a very direct way, here's how we seek truth in our family. There are many more times when you will behave and set requirements and expectations for behavior that are founded in the truth. You know, we're talking about values here. James Dobson once said, values are more caught than taught. I believe this is true. That was experience in our home. So if my values are not founded in truth, first of all, in the idea that there is truth, that there are things that are true for everyone in all time and in all cultures. Now, it may be applied differently, but it exists. And so it has to be the ultimate appeal for our reasoned, conscious decisions. Okay. Lead me by your truth. We've talked about that. And teach me. In other words, God doesn't just say, hey, here, let me just give you this GPS. You just punch in where you want to go and it'll give you the directions. Okay. Even if he did, he'd have to teach us how to use it. Have you ever tried to teach an old person who has almost no experience with a smart device how to use GPS? There's a learning curve, speaking as an old person. Teach me. Seems like a reasonable request, but in truth, it's a dangerous one, and here's why. You are taught more through failure than through success. So when I say, God, teach me, lead me by your truth and teach me, what I'm saying is, you can get tough if you need to. And you will, by the way. He's gonna have to get tough. I'm thick-headed. I'm strong-willed. I am selfish. Lead me by your truth and teach me. If I really want to be taught, I don't just show up when I feel like showing up. I show up according to the plan. And that plan is not so much established by me as the teacher. Okay. Lead me by your truth and teach me, for you are the God who saves me. When David said, you saves me, he was not thinking of New Testament saving. He was thinking of, you save me from enemies. You save me from the disgrace that bad decisions might bring. You save me on that level. For us, yeah, he is the God who saves me. His wisdom, his truth will save me from those things. But for us, he is the one who saves my eternal soul. Well, that's the reason I want his truth. I want him to teach me. Then he goes on. All day long, I put my hope in you. I've already shared with you that hope, I hardly feel qualified to teach about hope. And the reason is, I struggle with this in my own life. I struggle with the fact that I sometimes don't feel hope. But here is an interesting concept. David says, all day long, I put my hope in you. Part of the reason I struggle with hope is I'm looking for it to come from some outer source. It can, at times it can, but David gives a pretty strong, important principle. Put my hope in you. I have to choose to put my hope in you. Ultimately, no other placement is going to work for the long haul. It can't be sustained. I put my hope. That is an intentional decision, and I put my hope in you. Maybe it'd be good for us to dwell on that today and to think deeply about what does it look like to put my hope in God. Well, Time's up. I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.